Hey, it's Brianna with a quick announcement before we get to the show. I feel really terrible that there's been such a delay since our last episode, but unfortunately, Kelly has not been able to make it to our recording sessions for a while. She moved and started school, and she's got a bunch of other stuff going on that's kept her extremely busy. I've done my best to work around her schedule and be flexible and accommodating, but she still really hasn't been able to find the time to meet up. And it really breaks my heart not to be able to put out consistent episodes every single week. Since she hasn't been able to get together to record, I really wanted to find some...
I've got to tell you about this cool show I discovered called Small Business Revolution Main Street. It's a business makeover show with tons of awesome advice. What I love about it is they do it all with heart, not the hyped up drama of those other shows we've all seen. Ty Pennington, the renovation guy, he's on it, and Amanda Brinkman, this marketing guru from Deluxe. Definitely check it out. You can watch it on Hulu, Prime, or smallbusinessrevolution.org.
Solution to make sure we can keep up with putting out weekly episodes. So I'm going to be recording with guests to fill in whenever Kelly is busy and can't make it. Hopefully, this will give Kelly some freedom and extra time to balance the podcast with her schedule, while still making it possible for us to put out episodes every week. Of course, my hope is that Kelly's schedule will calm down and she'll be able to get back into a regular recording schedule soon. I know she has the best intentions of making it to meet up, but in the meantime, when she's busy, doing episodes with guests on the weeks that she can't make it feels like the best way to keep a consistent schedule. I know it's a bit of a change, but since I've always done the vast majority of the research and the writing, the information about the cases will stay relatively the same. And my feeling is that having a guest is kind of exciting because they will bring in a different perspective and some new energy, and I think it'll be kind of fun. I really enjoyed recording the episode this week, and I really hope you guys like it too. All right, I'm going to get out of here and get on with the episode. So thank you so much for listening. Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of Murder Dictionary Podcast. My name is Brianna and with me today is Courtney.
Hello.
So before we get started, I always wanted to remind everyone of what's in our description and show notes. You can find links to our social media if you want to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find links to our merch pages, which are on Threadless. And also, if you wanted small merch items and bonus episodes and stuff like that, we have a Patreon as well. So the links for all that are going to be in the show notes. Also, in the description, we always put links to our research material. So if you wanted to read up on any of the articles we used, you can check those out. And I put links for various like mental health resources, 12-step programs, anti-bullying, domestic violence, and a bunch of stuff like that. So if you need any of those resources, it's easy to just click on those as well. So I think that's pretty much it before we get started. So today we're going to be talking about Josef Fritzl.
Super gross.
Super disgusting.
Yeah.
Creepy. Yeah, I had trouble really fitting him into a letter, but I always, since the podcast began, I was like, I want to do an episode on Josef Fritzl. And anyone that's really seen him or any of the documentaries, it's something that really sticks with you. So it's definitely something I wanted to cover, but I figure it's perfect for a bonus since it didn't really fit into a letter. So today is Josef Fritzl. All right. So Josef Fritzl was born on April 9th, 1935 in Amstetten, Austria. He was an only child, which, not to shit on anyone that's an only child, but I do think it kind of creates a little bit of self-centeredness when you're the only child, right?
It's not going to be the only child. It's going to be the middle child.
Right.
So
yeah,
at least we're breaking those barriers.
right. His father left the family when Joseph was only 4 years old, and they never spoke again.
I did see something on that documentary that was made in 2010 about how Joseph said later that it was the best thing that ever happened to them.
Really?
Was his father leaving.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I didn't really find much information about his father, but then I would think his father must have been a real bad dude.
Another thing he said was that he replaced his father as her husband, which makes a little sense later on, some of the things he would say.
Right.
But at the same time, he hated her.
Right.
It's all very strange. I guess a lot of people hate their wives.
True story.
Yeah.
There's a reason why so many of them get murdered, I guess.
Hey, hysterical woman syndrome, right?
Definitely. So his mother was very modest. She often dressed in dark-colored clothing, very simple stuff, and tried to keep friends away from the house. I didn't really find too much about maybe them being in poverty, but I kind of make that assumption from that information, right?
That's what I gathered as well.
Yeah.
Lots of drab colors,
Yes.
olive clothing.
Yeah, don't invite your friends over.
No.
It's kind of embarrassing here.
Try to keep them away from the house. And then he did that as well.
Yes.
He became embarrassed because his mom was embarrassing.
Right. And I'm sure that's something that he carried on later on into his adulthood with his own family, which kind of created that culture for him to kind of do crazy shit and get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Joseph's mother was very stern. She was extreme disciplinarian. He said, "She used to beat me, hit me until I was lying in a pool of blood on the floor. It left me feeling totally humiliated and weak." And again, that's something that later on I feel like creates that perfect storm of wanting to take out that violence against women to kind of take that power back.
And he did it against the only one that ever really stood up to him.
Right.
And caused him a problem.
So he wasn't really okay with any women being,
Control issues?
Yes.
Much?
Just a little.
Maybe?
His mother was never affectionate with him and seemed to really resent him for being this burden to her. Like, she had the kid, but suddenly she was not okay with having the responsibility of being a parent. He began to actually sexualize his mother and her abuse, and he developed these sadomasochistic tendencies through this abusive relationship. As an adult, he would actually later reflect on his childhood and say, "Did I fantasize about my mother? Probably. But I was strong. I managed to suppress some urges."
Is probably the right word here.
Right? Like, either you did or you didn't.
I feel like it's all or nothing. Yeah, no, this is black and white.
Yes.
This doesn't feel gray. Probably.
After high school, he went to HTL Technical College, where he got a degree in electrical engineering. And he was able to really get a good job with his degree. Overall, he was kind of a successful guy. In 1956, at the age of 21, he married a 17-year-old named Rosemary. And to me, this is kind of a red flag that he marries a teenager when he's in his 20s, although I don't think it's as out of the ordinary for that era.
I think it's post-war Austria.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different priorities.
Yeah.
And I think that at this point, if you're a 17-year-old and you have a man who has a good degree,
right,
and a business, right? He's got a good reputation, from as far as we could tell. I saw pictures of him young. He was a very good looking man.
He was?
He was relatively good looking. I mean, he is problematic later, sure.
Right.
But I would say in the scheme of things, we're okay here. We're okay here. But I could definitely see this. The tragedy to me is that this was Rosemary's first boyfriend.
Right, yeah, you told me that, and I didn't find that anywhere, and that so
was sad.
sad.
I saw an interview in this movie with her sister, who was just a classic character in this film. Documentary, sorry. And she had a lot to say about him, how he would just, like, on a switch, he was really cool. Really cool. He was a nice man, I guess. And then one day, just psycho.
Yeah.
I don't think it happens that way, but, you know,
But
I guess.
he probably was kind of volatile.
And that Rosemary was the perfect person for him because she would just get steamrolled like nothing. She was just the perfect mark for him.
Yes. And especially when she's so young, it's easy to develop that dynamic just early on in a relationship. And then it continues forever. That she's always going to be very submissive to him.
You know nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel really bad. That's all she knew.
That's it.
Yeah. Over the next several years, they would have 7 children, 2 sons and 5 daughters. Again, I feel like that's way more common back in the day, but
I agree.
To me, that's like mind-blowing.
And all I can think right now is that's 5 daughters, that's 5 weddings, that's like, oh
right?
God, the backpack of the issues, right? Like with having 5
teenage
daughters,
girls
especially in that
sharing
time.
a couple bathrooms.
Absolutely. You have to have a relatively large space to live in, I imagine.
Yeah. So Joseph, like his own mother, turned into this very stern, cold, and disciplinary parent, even going as far as to be abusive to his wife and children, just like the cycle of abuse that was started with him. And of course, with that, I assume his mom was probably abused, you know?
I imagine.
So like we see in some abusive family dynamics, Joseph was a bit more severe with one particular child than he was with the others. And it's super common for, you know, just one child to be singled out. And oftentimes that is the child that's really rebellious and really an individual and kind of stands up to the parent. And he just, you know, kept trying to kind of knock her back down. So family and friends remember that Elisabeth, the one child that he did focus on most, was very withdrawn and shy when she was super young. And over time, like you said, that just kind of, she blossomed and started becoming more of an individual. A family friend named Paul Horror observed that Elisabeth was constantly being punished. He said that she would get a slap for every little thing. So even though she was kind of rebellious, she really didn't even have to rebel to get punished. She was just minding her own business, and any little thing that he deemed as a small infraction would get a punishment.
She was his favorite.
Yeah, quote, favorite.
Ew.
Yes. He said that it seemed like Joseph did not like Elisabeth, which, you know, oh God, that's just heartbreaking when you see a parent, because we've all seen that, right?
That would make you crazy.
Yeah. As a child, and
Yeah.
that's the, you know, defining relationship in your life with your
Mixed
parents.
messages.
Yes. So when Elisabeth was 11 years old, Joseph began sexually abusing her. Elisabeth would be raped by her father pretty regularly, and when they were alone, he would always kind of come after her. And then he would start to take her off on their own to like the car or basically out in the forest.
That's icky.
So they could be alone together.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. Back at the family home, Joseph's mother had also moved in with the family. So now he's back with his abuser.
Oh, good.
Right. That's definitely going to lead to great things.
This should end well.
So over time, their roles reversed, and Joseph began abusing his mother like he was abused as a child.
I guess he was separated from her long enough to get really pissed.
Right?
And then
all the
now
resentment grew.
All of it grew. And
Yeah.
now you're a feeble old woman, and I am in charge of your food.
Yeah.
Everything. Your walks, your water bowl, all of it.
Everything.
And you're going to feel it.
Right.
And you're going to know.
And this is the perfect
And I
opportunity.
bet you wish you'd let me have friends over.
Right?
I'm just saying.
You're going to regret that now.
You're going to regret it, and I'll make sure of it.
Yeah. And so he's now in adulthood just totally stronger than her. And
Oh,
yeah.
It's awful. It's happened so
Unbelievable.
much. Do I hate this?
Yes. He later admitted that he had actually locked his mother in the attic and he bricked up her window after telling neighbors that she had died. So she's like, my mom's gone. I'm just closing up the windows. Nothing to see here. Move along.
This is why
And
we
everybody
have to
believed
check
it.
on the old people in our
Yes.
neighborhoods, and like we have to call our grandparents
Mhm.
and great aunts and wacky cousins,
Right.
because
It's so common, this elder
just because
abuse.
someone says they're dead, they might just be bricked up in a room
You never know.
in Joseph's house.
That's the lesson we're learning from Josef Fritzl,
Well,
among many others.
maybe that really controlling mom down the street that went missing
Is
I don't
not.
know. Maybe
Yes.
we should check our neighborhoods.
Absolutely. So he kept her inside and locked up until her death in 1980, which, they estimate she was in there basically about 20 years without ever going into the outside world, having everything controlled by Joseph.
I did not realize it was 20 years.
Yes.
Okay, this just got even more insane.
Yeah.
20 goddamn years.
I know.
I didn't know it was 20 years.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a long time for her to imagine if people had found out she was alive.
Right.
Because that's a long time to be like, oh, she died 20 years ago. And
Yeah.
then she's just alive.
Imagine 19 years in,
She
a
would
family
be
member comes to
Christ
visit.
is risen. Like, people would be losing it.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah.
20 years. Damn.
So he used to work really late at night, and eventually it was actually discovered that he was not really working, that at sometimes he was just riding his bike around at night, and he was peeping into people's windows.
This was also care of the sister-in-law.
Right.
She had so much to say about what he was really up to. She says, eventually these things come out.
Right.
In Austrian, very angry.
But yeah, it's kind of weird to me that there's so many red flags. Obviously, the sister-in-law knew at the time, but nobody speaks up. So now in hindsight, you're like, oh, we knew this was happening. And that pisses me off because there's so many people that were
afraid.
victims.
I think a lot of people were afraid of this guy.
Yeah.
He was very domineering.
Yes.
And you know what they said repeatedly too? Another word people use to describe him was ruthless.
Yes.
Ruthless.
Yeah.
So,
I know.
yeah, maybe we err on caution.
Right. She was probably just like, okay, I can't really say anything.
It's my sister's business.
Yes. And of course, that's of the era, totally the attitude.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then so many people got away with these horrific things.
Yep.
So it became pretty well known at the time that Joseph was the neighborhood voyeur, and he was running around looking in everybody's windows. But again, it's one of those things that kind of a boys will be boys, kind of dismissive culture.
That's not normal.
No.
But I guess it is normal.
Yeah.
Because
then it was.
it's so constantly just, well, I remember when he would look in my window or something. We'd just catch him in the backyard looking in the windows. This is not normal behavior.
Right.
You
But
come in the house during the day and talk to people. You
right.
don't stare at them through their fucking dark windows at night.
I can't believe that this was real, that people would actually just be like, oh, he's just creepy Joseph.
That guy
he's our neighborhood weirdo.
He's the neighborhood weirdo. Yeah. And nobody, and then later on, nobody thought anything of it.
Right.
We never would have suspected this man of the crimes.
And then you want to be like, clutch my pearls when something more severe happens. And it's like, we all saw this coming. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So Joseph was also named as a suspect in a case of attempted rape of a 21-year-old woman named Maria Neubauer. And he was accused of indecent exposure. Maria said that he, quote, came ready for sex, but couldn't wrestle her to the ground. So he, after the tussle, stood up, got on his bike, and quickly just took off into the night. And as it was leaving, he yelled, "One day I'll get you."
I don't like that at all.
He's such an evil creep.
And the way she described it, she's like, and it happened right here on this grass, just pointing at this ground around this house that she lived in, and just, one day I'll get you. And I was just thinking, like, it had tones of Golden State Killer.
Yes.
I'm gonna get you. Like, it's that same thing. He was yelling at her in Austrian, but it was the same.
Wow.
Same. I'm going to get you.
I didn't even draw that parallel.
Oh, yeah, totally. It was the first thing I thought of. Was just like, oh my God, it's the same thing. Like trying to rape a woman in a yard right next to where you live, saying the same goddamn thing, jumping on a bicycle, taking off.
Right.
Into the night, and everyone thinks he's just a beat cop.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks this guy's just at work.
Yep. Around the same time that the sexual abuse of Elisabeth began, Josef also broke into the home of a 24-year-old nurse while the nurse's husband was away. And he raped her while holding a knife to her throat, and he threatened to kill her if she screamed. So soon after this, luckily, he was caught and he was convicted of rape. And he received an 18-month prison sentence, and he only served 12 fucking months. And it's just crazy to me that there's always so many red flags. Like, we see this escalating because he's gone from peeping to actual, like, assault and rape.
Now he has a physical record.
Right.
This is where it changes in the sense of where we would be like, okay, it's on paper. He's got a record now.
Yeah.
Things change later, you know, like lost things happen, this and that. But now it's like, okay, he's got a paper trail,
Yes.
as they would say, right? And you think like, oh, he wouldn't pop. He's
learned his
record now.
lesson.
He would never. This is again, oh, Joseph, just peeping in the windows. It's nothing. It's nothing different. Although now he's a convicted felon.
Right.
Either way, he's convicted. He's got a conviction on his record. He's served a sentence.
Yeah.
Oh, it's over for Joseph, right? He's
Right.
done with his crazy ways.
You
No.
would think.
The
but
flag
no.
just gets redder.
Absolutely.
Catches fire.
So after getting out of jail, he got a job in a construction material firm in Amstetten. And again, it's like, you have a record. There's no background checks.
Not only that,
Don't hire a fucking rapist.
this is the town he was born in.
Right. Everybody
He
knows.
has never left. You know what? I'm going to go like to the library and find out how big Amstetten is.
Right.
I got to know just for myself, because if it's like, 4 square miles,
Right.
what the fuck?
That's completely insane.
That's like deputy dog shit too,
Right.
by the way. Like, for real. We've got a paper trail now, folks. And it's the same guy.
Right.
Stop. Dewey from, what's the damn movie? The
Scream.
Right? Is that like our
Putting the
force?
case
This is
together.
our police force? Shit.
Yeah, I can't believe
This is
it.
the same town he was born in.
Yes.
It's probably the same hospital he was born in. Is the same one. Oh my God, that his kids are being born in.
Yes.
This is crazy.
Yes. Everybody knows
Everybody
him.
knows it's Freaky Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going.
But
oh my
he
God.
keeps going
It just
on.
keeps getting crazier. And his
Yes.
mom is currently in his attic, right?
Right. This
Like,
whole
as we're
time.
talking about this, mom is just being bricked away.
Yes.
Okay.
Unreal. So later on, he would become a technical equipment salesman, and he traveled throughout Austria. So who knows what he was up to on the road? I always think there were no other cases that were attached to him that we know of, but it's not like this could have been an isolated thing. We know that he must have been out there
I know.
attacking other women.
I know what he's up to.
Right? Like, you can take a wild guess.
He was up to no good. That's what he's up to.
Definitely no good.
I don't even need to just, we know.
Over time, he invested in a vacation and rental properties, and he kept the money flowing in this way. So he was constantly earning through these vacation spots. And he was able to spend more and more time at home. And later, he actually retired early while he was still just earning money from his properties. And I know you found some information about how there was an arson that took place at one of his properties.
Oh, yeah.
So he definitely lived off the insurance money. And you told me it was well known that he had done it. And people in the community would just say, we knew that he burned it down.
I believe it was 73 is when they bought the Sea-Stern. Was
right, Sea-Stern.
Bed and breakfast is the words. And bought that. And then it burns down. I want to say it was 1978, because it's the same year that he gets paid out for the insurance, is the same year that they start the building of the underground bunker.
Oh.
So his arson money, because all the neighbors are walking around in this documentary, they're like, yeah, he did that shit.
Right. We know.
Yeah, he's an arsonist. This is what he did.
He's a peeping
We are
Tom.
aware of it.
He's a rapist.
He's
He's
Joseph,
an arsonist.
Freaky Joseph.
Right.
He's been here for years. His mom is gone. We don't know.
Town character,
Town
good old
weirdo.
Freaky Joseph.
So, yeah, he's taking this arson money that he got from insurance, and he's paying for his underground bunker.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but 1 and 1 is 2.
But you have to assume the
he's an
timing of
asshole
it.
person. He's a bad guy. I'm just thinking, like, he gets a big check, and then he starts a construction project.
Right.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. 2 + 2 equals.
What a bummer. She did. Oh, man.
Yeah.
All of it.
All of it. So in 1978, Joseph decided to modify the family home by enlarging the underground floor of the house. So he applied for a building permit for a, quote, extension with basement. It was not really difficult to get the officials to approve this underground construction permit because nuclear bunkers were really seen as kind of a normal and necessary addition to Austrian households at this time. It really wasn't out of the ordinary.
Interesting normalcy.
Right? Yes. It's the new normal.
And quite frankly, I have family members who we found out later dug underground bunkers.
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm dead serious. Silmar is the area we would be speaking of.
Okay.
So, yeah, they exist, and they're not always up to code. Let's put it that way. But, I mean,
that was my main concern, Courtney, was like, are they up to code?
But I know, like, you're thinking, the 60s is the Cold War, which didn't exactly end. I mean, in Austria, like, Germany, Berlin Walls.
Yes.
All this stuff. So it makes perfect sense to me. But it's also just like from our perspective, bunkers, permits?
Right. We think it's totally weird.
We think it's extra storage.
Yes.
Or it's like a rumpus room.
Or you're a prepper,
know. Coupon lady.
Yes.
That's what's going on here, right? 1978 coupon
just
lady.
Just a Costco shopper.
Costco. Is that Sam's Club out there maybe? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Staters. It didn't seem weird at this time,
No, of course not.
Yeah.
We're talking about nuclear war.
Makes total sense.
This isn't strange.
So the local council had even given him a grant for a couple £1,000 towards his building costs for this, which today would be about 11 grand US dollars.
Is this like when I did nothing and I received a stimulus package check right around 2000 and earlies?
Right. Yeah, you should get paid for doing nothing. That's like the best thing to get paid for.
Nothing. And then I'm going to build my bunker. Crazy shit.
Yeah. So definitely we can kind of deduce that he just used the grant money plus the insurance money and started this construction.
He did not pay for this.
Right.
Actually.
This was nothing.
No, he oh my God. This was a completely free endeavor.
Yep. Crazy.
And he didn't even build it technically himself because on the documentary is this guy with his hand up, so proud of himself going, I built the whole thing myself.
Oh,
he gave me the blueprints that he drew himself. It was all me. And I was like,
Would
I
you
don't
claim
know
that?
if this is a good look for you and your future construction project. But then again, bunker builders, they're going to be like, that's the guy I want.
It was a really big project, and they had to get heavy equipment and a lot of manpower to remove the soil from below the house. It was a huge, huge construction site at the time. So building inspectors visited the site and verified that the new extension had been built according to the dimensions specified in the building permit. And Joseph would later admit that around 1981 or 1982, he started to convert the basement into a prison cell, complete with running water, a toilet, a bed, a hot plate, and a refrigerator. In 1983, he added even more space by creating this passageway to a pre-existing basement that was under the old part of the property, and only he knew about it. So there were a total of 8 doors that had to be opened before reaching that final room that he had basically converted into the prison cell. And Joseph's intention with building this whole thing, I'm sure some people are already drawing the conclusion or know the story, was that he wanted to keep Elisabeth there. That was the reason he built this whole underground thing. So this was the daughter that he'd always focused on and disciplined more than anyone else, and he decided that he was going to hold her prisoner.
I don't understand this need and want to keep people.
Yeah.
Like pets or just, just to keep them. Like pets, we love pets and we like let them wander around and live amongst us. This is straight, just keep you in a box somewhere where I know you're there and you're not going to go anywhere.
Yes.
And I'll come back and you'll still be there. And what has happened to you to get to where you're just freaky Joseph keeping people for yourself?
I have no idea
object
what that kind of psychology is.
I'm glad.
But
glad to hear that.
You're safe. But I just think that it does happen kind of commonly that people
oh my God, have you noticed
people.
Southern California? We've got like 5 cases open right now of people with their children 10, 13, 12 million children in boxes, places, and garages and houses. Like, this happens so much more than you think.
Right.
Check your neighbors.
Right.
Check them.
Welfare checks for everyone.
Just saying.
Yes. Yeah, I just don't understand it, but it does seem like it's, you know, I mean, as common as the urge to murder or rape or any of those other things, there is this psychological urge to actually keep a human being as a possession for yourself. It's crazy.
Long-term relationship. Same. Like, it's that easy, folks.
Right?
Shit.
Yeah. So he admitted that he planned to lock Elisabeth up during his prison stint for the earlier rape conviction. So he had been thinking about this for a long time. And he had started these plans, you know, and was just ready to keep her.
This made me wonder about his cellmate.
Right.
Several things. One, was he a keeper of people as well and said, hey, this is how you do it? Then if not, two, did he say, hey, what are you into? Joseph was like telling him whatever. Or was it just he came up with this in boredom?
Right.
Serving out a conviction prior on his record.
Yes.
It's weird. I don't know. It's all, I can't make sense of any of it.
So he said that he wanted to contain and express his evil side. He said, I was born to rape and I held myself back for a relatively long time. So once he got to the point where he was planning this out, I guess he had just figured he would let all those urges flow freely.
I guess you just let your freak flag fly. But at what point is this the flag you've chosen?
It's well beyond freak flag.
Because, like, you can get away with looking in windows and...
Well, that's the thing, is if he keeps getting away with stuff with a slap on the wrist.
People like this, it's why people get away with stuff like this, is because they never get, you know, nobody ever checks these assholes like in Child, you know.
Right.
Just nobody ever checks these people and they think they can just do whatever the fuck they want.
No one ever says, okay, this is awful, please stop.
And then he starts beating his mom up because he was beat up. It's like, oh, God, get out of here.
Right. You know, it's just important to check somebody. If you see something, check them.
Fuck
and
yeah.
then they'll learn a lesson. If enough people are checking, you know, the neighborhood Joseph,
you
then
can
Joseph
do it nicely.
will stop. Fuck nicely. He's an asshole.
Yeah,
just
you're
check
right.
him.
But that's a guy that I would immediately be like, okay, he's a freak show. I don't need him coming after me because the killer's coming.
Yeah.
I got to be ready.
You're right.
So, like, I want to be the nice one that, like, all these people in the block died except her. It's really weird. You know? Like, all the houses are on fire except that one. It's so strange. And all I can think of is Born to Rape. I was born to rape.
Yeah.
That is, like, the scariest thing I've ever heard. But I also can't stop thinking, like, tramps like us, baby, we were born to run.
Right.
It's like little Bruce.
Same thing.
Little Bruce, little Joseph. I don't know. But born to rape is a really aggressive statement.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you have kids. And you have a life and family knowing that this is in you.
The whole time, this is in the back of your head.
The whole time.
But
forever.
you continue to try and have a, quote, normal life, knowing that someday you're going to act out these urges.
Said, one day I'll get you.
Yes.
Probably didn't really matter who it was at that point.
He just needed to get someone.
Hole's a hole in the dark.
Right. So after finishing school at 15, Elisabeth started training to become a waitress. Elisabeth had run away from home on many occasions prior to this, and she pretty much threatened to run away constantly, you know, and she was constantly being disciplined. So every time she would say, that's it, I'm leaving.
And she would leave for long periods of time.
Yes.
And would just show up, leave, come back, whatever, stay for a day, leave for 3 months.
Right.
So it was hard to tell, but, like, that's not reason enough to just, you know, like, oh, we just trashed that kid.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, you don't give up on your child.
No.
So in one of her, you know, runaway attempts, she got actually as far away as Vienna with one of her friends. And she was found by the police about 3 weeks later, and they returned her home. So each time she'd run away, she'd been dragged back to her family home by the police, or they called her father and he brought her back.
Which sounds small town to me.
Very, yeah.
And
just
sounds
like,
like
they'll
Dewey,
fix it.
Sounds like Deputy Dewey on the case again.
Yes.
Like, but I don't know. It's like, you know, you see the cops deal with the same people again and again and again. It's like, oh, it's Tanya. Call her sister.
Right.
She's the only one who can talk her down. We were here yesterday. So, you know, you never know. But this is, again, Freaky Joseph. Why are you having him? But again, like now, Freaky Joseph's daughter's a freak too. So let him
Yeah,
deal
they're
with
just
each
like,
other.
oh, it's
They're
just the
that
Fritzl
house.
family.
It's the Fritzl family.
Yes. And they just keep
They're a
bringing her
little
back.
frazzled.
Right. And they just, I don't know, that's so dismissive to not really take the problem seriously because they're the weird Fritzls.
It's not like Rosemary's going to do anything.
Right. Nothing.
She's not going to check anyone here.
Nope. So when she came home, she started her waitress classes again, and she finished in the middle of 1984, and she was offered a job in a nearby town. When Joseph found out that she would be leaving soon, he decided that he needed to get Elisabeth in the basement cell sooner rather than later. So he was running out of time. It became pretty urgent, and he had to get her in.
She was going to be a career waitress.
Yeah. And get out and escape.
And it sounds like she'd already been to Vienna.
Right.
Which is
She's
a
seen
big
the world.
town compared to Amstetten.
Yes.
So, yeah, she's like, she'll end up being like a cocktail waitress with a condo and some cute little Fiat, you know?
I know.
Like, she'll be fine. And that's not in the plans for Joseph, who sounds like he has to keep everybody really close by. His mother is living in the attic.
Right.
She may be dead by now.
Yeah.
Because this is 86 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think she's dead. But
decided.
She's still probably there.
Yeah, I know, right?
And dead.
Yeah, I don't know.
Freak show.
Because
oh my God.
if they said that she was dead, then what
Where's
about
that
her funeral,
criminal
her
record?
body? I don't know anything about that, to be honest.
Just go to the library.
It's crazy.
Check this out.
Yeah.
Bonus.
Yep. So Joseph asked if Elisabeth could help him lift a door into its frame down in the basement because they were still doing construction, but she didn't know this was kind of the last piece of the puzzle in the basement facility. So Elisabeth kind of just followed her father down to the cellar, and she helped him hold up the door while he installed it in its frame. As she turned to leave, he held a piece of cloth soaked with ether over her mouth and nose, and she passed out.
You just don't see this coming, especially when it's your dad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if he's freaky Joseph.
Even all the things she's been through with him, there's no way to anticipate that something so insane is going to happen.
Because he hasn't gone insane yet, as far as you know. He's been just weird and nuts.
Right, but
he
that's
hasn't
so
physically
extreme.
done anything nuts. I mean, to a degree. Again, the normalcy.
Yeah,
here.
It's all relative at this point.
Oh, it's all relative.
Yeah. So Joseph put cuffs on her arms and tied them behind her back with an iron chain. He then attached the chains to metal posts behind her bed, so she could only actually move for a couple feet in either direction at the beginning of her captivity. After a couple days, he loosened her restraints by putting the chain around her waist instead of on her arms. So the living conditions were really cold and damp. There was uneven floors, and the ceilings were no higher than 5'6" at the very tallest point. So there was some shorter points as well. So she couldn't even really walk fully standing up. She had to stoop the entire time being in this little cellar.
That's a mess.
Yeah. There were rats, which she often caught with her bare hands to get rid of them.
Eek.
I know.
I mean, oh.
Yeah.
So many reasons.
It's just a horror movie.
It really is. And
Yeah.
it just continues to get horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, it can't be.
You're like,
no,
this can't get worse.
And then you're like,
and
oh,
then it
iron
does.
chains on your skin in the cold. And
Mm-hmm.
all I remember in that documentary, they would just reference over and over again the smell of the cellar.
Yes.
And then at trial, they could smell things. I'm sorry, but they could smell things still. Like, that's how gnarly it is.
Oh, God. There was water coming through the walls in the winter, and it was blisteringly hot and humid in the summer.
And Austria is like a 5-10 feet of snow kind of place.
Mm-hmm. So it was just, she's freezing and there's water dripping.
And then it's, humid, hot. It's just, this is the best of both worlds.
Joseph would punish Elisabeth by switching off all the power in her cell in the basement. So then Elisabeth was left completely alone in total darkness. I can't even imagine that kind of terror. To keep her compliant, Joseph would tell her, quote, If you do not do as I say, your treatment will get worse and you will not escape from the cellar anyway. When people, of course, began asking where Elisabeth had gone because she disappeared, he told friends and family that she had run off to join a cult.
Now, this is another where we need more questions.
Yes.
We need to be doing our due diligence, Mom Rosemary.
Right.
And I know that, Rosemary was a very submissive woman who would never go against Joseph. Okay, but there's all these movies, that the Wolfpack family, the mom was just dead behind the eyes,
yes,
and the dad
that
ran
movie.
that show. And there were 6 kids in there just bouncing off the walls. And you're like, at what point? There was never going to be a point with Rosemary.
Yes. There was never enough for her to really stand up.
No.
Yeah. So, of course, since she had run away so much, people actually believed him when he said she went to join a cult.
Now, I did remember also reading something about a Detective Wolfart.
Oh, okay. Love the name.
Oh. Every time I read it, it was just, I gotta say this out loud. Detective Wolfart. Now, he was the crack
I'm really
detective.
inside like a 12-year-old boy.
Me too. It was bad.
So
it was
easy
horrible.
to
I read it by myself, like in the dark, looking around, like, does anybody else see this?
Wolfart.
Does anybody else read this? This is amazing. So he was like the crack detective. He was a pastor who was also an expert in cults.
Oh,
this is who they were like, have you heard of this place? Elisabeth's gone. Yes,
the cult
I have.
experts that I trust the most are always religious figures.
All I could see was the guy from the West Memphis 3 documentaries.
Oh, God,
that
yes.
expert on black magic and cults
Mm-hmm.
and how everybody sacrifices babies.
Yes.
Although in this case, it's a little true.
Yes. So Rosemary, her mother, filed a missing persons report, but the police had no leads, and so they really didn't pursue anything, especially since she had run away so much. Detectives went to the house a couple times. They tried to gather information and ask a few questions, but they never really got the feeling that anything was wrong as far as the dynamic of the family goes.
I would bet that Rosemary only filed that police report at the urging of Joseph.
Mm-hmm. To make it look normal.
And to shut up his... Maybe Rosemary was like, I don't know
Where is she?
Where is Elisabeth? This is not... she would do this, she would do that. She's not going to join a cult. Like, I don't understand. Something else has happened. And to keep her from digging, maybe she was trying to stand up.
Right.
And then he was just like, well, go file a missing persons report then if you're so concerned.
Right.
Because I don't know. From what we know already, I don't know if she'd do it on her own.
I don't think so.
But I would love to think she did.
Yeah.
Let's think
I want to believe that she did.
Let's go with it. But no.
But it does seem like it would be part of the overarching kind of ruse that he was putting on.
This is a long con.
Yeah. A month later, Joseph gave a letter from Elisabeth to the police. The letter said that she was tired of living with her family and she was staying with a friend. She warned her parents in the letter not to look for her or she would leave the country. In reality, what had actually happened was that Joseph had dictated a letter to Elisabeth in the basement, and she wrote it downstairs, and he went and sent it. So he was really dedicated to this deception, and he would, with these letters, drive really far away, like a couple towns over, to mail it and make it seem like she was the one mailing it from wherever her cult was. I don't know. At this point, I'm kind of like, most people are probably thinking, how did nobody know? How did nobody really realize what was going on? But according to the sister-in-law, Christine, Joseph went into the basement every morning at 9 a.m. to work, and it really didn't seem unusual. Because you would think that someone would, say, maybe Joseph has her, right?
Well, it sounds like no one questions Joseph.
Yeah.
That's the way this goes.
Yeah. But I don't know, he just said that he was drawing plans for machines that he would then sell to different companies as a freelance engineer. So he had this excuse for all this time that he was spending in the basement. He had an excuse for where Elisabeth had gone. And again, him being such a ruthless guy, nobody was really standing up and saying, hey, this doesn't really add up,
Oh, no. No one's going to do that.
Right. So when he sometimes stayed in the basement for really long hours or sometimes even overnight, the family just thought that he was working on a big project or he had a deadline, so he was kind of cramming at the last minute, and they dismissed it as normal behavior. But it was noted at the time that he wouldn't allow his wife or any of the kids to bring him food or coffee or anything while he was working in the cellar. So normally you would think if your husband or your father was kind of working a lot, that you would just go like bring him a sandwich or something to drink. And
Definitely.
He always forbid that. So that's a
Definitely.
definite red flag there.
Mom would bring in dinner, something.
Right. And you always hear that
Totally.
like, oh, we couldn't go into the quote office. We
Mhm.
couldn't go into the garage. If there's a
Absolutely.
secret area that you're not allowed in, something fucked up is going in there. You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
Yeah. Always check that out for sure.
Yep.
Throughout this time, they actually had various tenants who were staying in the upstairs part of the home. So a few of the tenants had actually heard noises, but Joseph always said that it was the gas heating system that made these kind of rustling noises.
This is pretty ballsy, by the way.
Right? You
To
can
have
hear someone's
tenants?
there.
And tenants downstairs as well.
Right.
Like, I mean,
The place was crawling with people.
yeah, they said that there had been over 100 people in the course of the time they lived there that had come in and out of that house and rented it.
That's
And
so nuts.
that's so many people.
So many people that bought the story too.
It's just so crazy because that's over 100 people he had to walk up to, look in the face, do an interview for like a tenant, for like be a landlord. Hi, I take your rent.
Right.
You know, like,
Hi, I'm Crazy Joseph.
all of it. It's
Yeah.
just
So
unreal.
crazy. About 6 to 9 months into her imprisonment, Joseph removed the metal chain because it was, quote, hindering his sexual activity.
Shane's got to go.
Got to get it out of the way.
Shane's got to go.
Ugh. So he sexually abused and raped Elisabeth several times a day since the second day of her imprisonment, all the way through for years to come. So over the course of nearly a quarter century, he would rape her at least 3,000 times. He repeatedly beat and kicked her. He also subjected her to sexual humiliation. So one of the things that he would do was he would force her to reenact scenes from really violent pornographic films. So he would bring, I remember they said that they had like a TV set up near the bed and he had a VCR and stuff like that. And he would bring these films that I guess were his spank bank and he made her do whatever was going on in the porn.
Just reenactments.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
The abuse actually left her with serious, long-lasting physical injuries and, of course, psychological damage. But from what they say, she had a lot of pretty, she's not being taken to the hospital or anything, and she's got a ton of contusions, bruises, breaks, whatever, from all this happening. So she says that he really only spoke to her if he was abusing or raping her. Otherwise, they really didn't have any interaction at all. In November of 1986, Elisabeth had a miscarriage, and it was in the 10th week of her pregnancy.
I can only imagine how many times that happened.
It's unreal.
I mean,
for all the injuries and stuff. It was only one that was reported.
Yeah,
but I really
I mean,
have to imagine that this was happening
it's had to
more than
happen
that.
often.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
So she spent the first 5 years of her imprisonment entirely alone. And then 5 years into her captivity in 1988, she gave birth to her first child named Kirsten. She was really horrified, of course, by being pregnant with her father's baby. But the prospect of not being alone and having some sort of hope, something to kind of live for and having a purpose was actually a relief to her at the time.
I bet it would be horrifying.
Yeah.
To be pregnant by your father.
I
mean, I
know.
can't even go there.
Yeah, but
like, and then, she's the only one here with any real shit upstairs because She is like, this isn't okay, everybody.
Right.
I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, she's coming
and you all
at it.
should be too.
Right.
Like, why am I the only one that sees how crazy this shit is?
She has some normalcy and she knows how fucked up
I'm glad to
it
hear
is.
that.
Yeah.
Damn.
So she gave birth. This is just my fucking nightmare. She gave birth without any medical assistance.
Ugh.
Joseph basically handed her a few towels, disinfectant, and a dirty pair of scissors, and then gave her a 1960s book on childbirth and left her to deliver the baby completely on her own.
Can't be bothered.
I can't even imagine.
Just solitary childbirth.
It just makes me feel sick to my stomach just
it's
thinking
gross.
about it. So she gave birth to 7 children over the next 12 years. And each and every delivery took place, again, without any medical help. So I'll list the children for you and some of the kind of key events of those years while she was having kids. So in August 1988, her first child, Kirsten, we talked about, was born and lives with Elisabeth in the cellar. In February 1990, her son, Stefan, was born. So now she's got a toddler and a newborn in the cellar. In August of 1992, Lisa is born. In May 1993, at 9 months old, that baby, Lisa, is discovered outside the family home in a cardboard box. And it's assumed that Elisabeth left the baby there, and there's a note asking for the child to be looked after. So after the baby was dropped off at the doorstep, Joseph would have her write letters saying she was well, but she couldn't look after the baby, and, she wanted the child to have a normal childhood, basically. So she couldn't do that where she was in the cult, basically.
Of course she can't.
Right. This goes along with his whole story of the cult.
I'm flabbergasted at the fact that, again, these people just, especially Rosemary, oh, well, this is my grandchild.
Right. Now I'm just going to raise
sense
it.
Because there's a note. She left a note, everyone. I always told her to leave a note. And she did it. I know this is my daughter. I know it's her. It's her writing. It
totally normal
It totally
behavior.
sounds like her, and it goes right along with, she's in this cult.
Yeah.
I don't know if Rosemary had friends, like other old lady friends.
Right.
Who were just like,
oh, Rosemary,
this sounds like bullshit to me.
Yeah.
I would hope
that someone was sitting there.
Again,
just
I don't think Rosemary had a very big support system.
No.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, and I doubt that Joseph would let that happen.
No.
Because he knows that he's putting her in fucked up situations, and if she has friends, she'll probably be more likely to stand up, because those friends will be like, fuck that guy.
17 years old.
Right. Yeah, he just cut that off. So in February 1994, the 4th child, Monica, is born. In December of 1994, at 10 months old, Monica is found in a stroller outside the entrance of the house. And again, of course, Rosemary takes the baby in and raises it.
Well, it's her
as
grandchild. Of course she did.
I mean, what else will you do? So shortly afterwards, Elisabeth's mother, Rosemary, receives a phone call asking her to take care of the child. And the caller sounds like Elisabeth, but it's assumed that Fritzl actually used a recording of her voice. So Rosemary reported the incident to police, and she was especially shocked by this because they had changed their phone number, and she didn't know how Elisabeth would have gotten their new phone number that was unlisted.
That's pretty good of Rosemary to catch that, by the way.
Yeah, she's a
Would
baby
not
detective.
expect that from her.
Right. She's putting 2 and 2 together, but she's not able to really...
She doesn't have the voice.
...to stand up and say that this is not okay.
I wonder what she thought was going on. I would love to hear, what Rosemary really was like, well, I just figured... Or if it was really just the bullshit Joseph gave her, but maybe she had a clue, well, I thought maybe it was aliens.
Right.
She had some wild and out
really
view.
Likely.
Hey, with her, it sounds totally possible.
Yeah, in her world, I guess that's kind of, you never know what could happen.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
In April of 1996, Elisabeth gives birth to 2 twin boys named Michael and Alexander. But really early on, Michael began having severe breathing issues, like right after his birth. And baby Michael actually died in Elisabeth's arms when he was only 66 hours old. So Josef took the baby from Elisabeth and burned the body in the incinerator. Josef said, quote, "I don't know why I didn't help. I just overlooked it. I thought the little one would survive." The surviving twin, Alexander, was taken upstairs and again left on the doorstep when he was 15 months old.
Now, I wonder if they were planning to put both of these twins on the doorstep, or if, well, he died super early.
Right.
Never mind.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty wild. But then the other thing that's crazy is it's like they were able to get away with so many home births of her for so long. He probably didn't. He just thought it would survive.
He really...
I figured she'd make it. She was a strong woman.
Right,
you know?
right.
She can do it.
And every situation that he'd put her in,
she
with
just bites on a rag.
Exactly, that she had gotten through it. So he probably did assume that it would be okay.
And then she was just a hysterical woman that her baby's sick or something, and then it actually died. And,
right.
Oh, shit.
But he's also so, if you're a parent, you're more invested in this. But he's so disconnected because he's a fucking psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
So it really, I'm sure he had the thought, oh, it'll make it. But he also had this disconnect where he probably didn't give a fuck.
What's weird, too, is this is his son.
Right.
And grandson.
Yes.
Plural twins. And that is weird to me as well as we're reading these names off. It's like, oh my God, these are both of these things.
Yes.
It's so creepy to remember all that as you keep going.
Very, very gross.
Scary guy.
Yeah. In December of 2002, Felix is born. But Josef thinks that Rosemary already has her hands full, so he actually leaves Felix downstairs with Elisabeth. So if you're following that, now 3 children, the oldest Kirsten, Stefan, who's 1 year younger than Kirsten, and the youngest one, Felix, stayed with Elisabeth in the basement. And then the 3 middle children, Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, were taken upstairs to live with the rest of the Fritzl family. So Elisabeth, of course, was sad to part with some of her children, that they had to be upstairs, but she was actually happy and kind of relieved that some of her children would actually have a chance at a normal life, So Josef and Rosemary applied with social services to be foster parents for the 3 kids that were brought upstairs. And according to Austrian law, his criminal record was expunged after 15 years. So he was able to take in these kids like nothing.
This is where the paper trail thing would have been it.
Right.
I mean,
for it to come into play and put a stop.
Yeah, for those 3 kids to just have been like, become wards of the state or something.
Right.
Or somebody would have started digging in. Well, we got to find this mom before we can give these kids to a different family.
Yeah.
Within the family, you can probably do a lot more, right?
Right.
I don't know about Austrian adoption processes and foster families and stuff, but it sounds like as long as there's somebody from the family willing to take them, they were able to take them. And pretty nice of him to, only take on 3 for Rosemary.
Right.
Like,
he really split it down the middle.
She is way into her golden years.
I know.
It's a bummer. She's already raised 7 kids of her own, I think.
Yes.
It was, and shit. It's like, and one is in a cult, leaving these babies on my doorstep.
That's so much for someone to just take all that on.
It's too much for a lot of people.
Yeah. So since the kids actually arrived on the doorstep over 25 years after his conviction, when he applied for the foster parenting, the authorities were just unaware of his criminal record entirely.
Ugh.
So the Fritzl foster parent application was approved, and the family received regular visits from social workers who really said they observed nothing suspicious.
Neither did people living in the house.
Right.
So crack job. Great job.
Social worker Dewey on the job.
No kidding.
So Josef began living this complete double life with both families. He would often, watch TV and hang out and bring gifts and toys to play with the downstairs kids. And he would dress Elisabeth up in clothes that he liked and treat her like she was kind of his wife or side piece or something. So when friends on vacation with Josef noticed him buying small dresses and lingerie that clearly wouldn't fit his wife Rosemary, he just made up an excuse that he had a mistress. And nobody questioned this. And he just brought the items back and dressed Elisabeth up like it was normal. Nobody called him on it.
In the documentary, his best friend Paul is on there talking about this video he shot of Josef in Thailand. Later on, they take this trip, and he's walking around this store picking out, size 2-4
right
panties.
Because she's also a very, she was taken in her teens.
She was tiny.
So she was malnourished.
Size of like a 15-year-old girl.
Right.
Always.
She just stayed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Rosemary was not that.
Yes.
And it was known Rosemary was not that. And his friend, Paul, even calls him out, and he just says, I have a mistress. I got this girlfriend.
Yeah,
they were
no
all
big
just
deal.
like, I don't know if that's true. But something's up, whatever. I don't want to dig into it. Because, again, it's their business.
Right.
We don't need to get involved. He's freaky Josef.
Yeah.
We got his number. It's okay.
His freaky business is his freaky business.
He's probably cheating on his wife.
Right. Whatever.
And I think that, whatever. That's cool. We're in Bangkok.
No big deal.
He's probably cheating on his wife. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Fantasy tourism is nothing new. Right?
So true.
It's probably that. And I would have just been like, yeah, it's cool, whatever. All right, bring me another drink.
Right?
Like it's not my business.
Yeah, they just want to move on from it.
So gross, though. That video is great because he's so confused. He's just filming him looking at teddies.
Yeah.
He's like, what the fuck is this about? You can hear him. You can hear it through the camera, like the confusion. It's good.
So Fritzl often threatened Elisabeth and her children that remained in the basement by telling them that if they tried to escape, that they would be killed. He also lied and said that he had installed this system that would give them electric shocks if they touched the doors. And it would also release poison gas if they actually opened the doors. So nobody really attempted to get out, and they believed what he said, And as the children got older and they were more aware of what was going on, they often had to watch their mother, Elisabeth, be abused by Josef.
Yeah, there's definitely no living room.
Right.
Leave
there's
the kids
no...
in while you go rape mom.
Right.
In bedroom number 1 on the diagram.
Yeah, it's unreal. The whole thing was very open, so the remaining children were just watching the sexual assault.
There were cork all along the hallway for soundproofing.
Oh, really?
So that when they went from room to room, it didn't make a lot of noise. It's just the boiler, right?
Yeah.
But it was cork wallpaper. I know they sell this stuff, but I don't know how he did it, but it was thick cork, and there were certain parts on all the diagrams that were just crazy soundproofed.
Huh.
And right behind the workshop, which is probably where a lot of the wild shit that would be loud went on, because that whole room was soundproofed.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So during this time with all these kids down there, he would continue to bring these boxes of porn downstairs and play the videos with all the children being able to see, then force Elisabeth again to reenact the scenes. And he would record her doing it, and the children were there for this whole ordeal, which is just unreal to me. Around 1994, since there were now more people in the cellar, Josef allowed them to enlarge the prison area from 35 square meters to 55 square meters. So about approximately 380 square feet to 590 square feet. Still super small, but at least a little bit bigger. But his condition for expanding this area was that Elisabeth and her 2 children, who were only 4 and 6 at the time, had to actually dig out the soil with their bare hands. And it took them years to finish this.
Well, Brianna, they got time.
Right? There's nothing else to do.
And I don't know if you've noticed,
It's
but he does
unreal.
his construction for free. So
he's just trying to get that free labor.
He's got workers.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even need tools. They got hands, right?
He's a fucking monster.
This guy's just an asshole. He's just ruthless as fuck.
Oh my God.
It's the perfect word. It's
It
made
blows
for a
my
movie,
mind.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It really is just some wild out shit.
Mm-hmm. At the same time that they were trying to dig out this expansion and remodel the downstairs, Joseph decided to build a swimming pool in the backyard. And partially this was kind of because he needed to explain why there was so much dirt being moved around.
Remember that bunker in Silmar?
Yes.
So they started a vegetable garden,
Oh,
in
God.
quotes. Because where did all this dirt come from?
Right.
Well, we're going to plant tomatoes and sunflowers and all these amazing... And then, there was a bunker being built. Like whenever, again, we got to check our neighbors.
Yeah.
And whenever someone's got tons of dirt.
If you see a bunch of soil around,
Fertilizer,
ask some
lots
fucking
of fertilizer.
questions.
And you aren't gardening.
Right.
We got questions for you. I mean, big questions.
Yeah.
And how much does it suck to be a downstairs kid knowing you're digging all this and they're putting in a swimming pool that you're not going to use?
Right.
Sucks to be a downstairs kid.
Elisabeth tried to decorate their underground dwelling, and she kind of tried to keep some normalcy for the sake of her children by making it kind of bright and cheery. She painted flowers and animals on any available surface. She put stickers around to make things more happy and cheery. And most of the things that she painted, it's important to think that the children from downstairs had never actually seen these things in real life. You know, so their only exposure to a flower or this cow that she had painted were just from the paintings. They'd never seen it. Right.
Maybe.
Right. Just
Maybe.
TV and her art. That was it.
I mean, that's all you're going to get.
Yeah. So they did have a television, they had a radio and a VHS player, and Elisabeth taught the children how to read and write. But if Joseph decided to punish them, he again would turn off the electricity for days at a time and not bring them food. In April of 2008, Elisabeth's firstborn, 19-year-old Kirsten, became really sick, and she was having severe difficulty breathing. And Elisabeth, who was now 42 at the time, was afraid for Kirsten's life, and she begged her father to let their daughter go to the hospital.
Their daughter.
I know.
Ugh.
Yeah, shudder. Ugh. So Joseph had never been lenient or shown really any mercy in any of these situations before, but he actually reluctantly took her upstairs and he transported her to the hospital. He told his wife and the doctors that Kirsten had been dropped off on the doorstep, like all the other babies, because she needed medical attention that apparently Elisabeth couldn't get for her in whatever facility the cult had. So Joseph told the doctors that Kirsten was his granddaughter and that he didn't really know where his daughter Elisabeth was. So Kirsten was admitted to the hospital and she was in critical condition with life-threatening kidney failure.
And at this point, do they just think that Kirsten walking and going like, so yeah, I live in this bunker with my mom. I live underground. It's really dark. So like this light right now, this is too much for me. Like, do you just brush this off as the rantings of someone with kidney failure and maybe like they're going out of their mind? They're in pain. They're just been sick. They've got like a heat fever going on and they're just the rantings of a hysterical woman.
Yes.
You know? I think that's what happens.
I assume that she wasn't even really conscious. And even if she was conscious, I assume she was also so traumatized that if she was actually conscious, she couldn't really articulate the kind of situation.
She's not making sense.
Yeah.
I don't think at this point.
Yeah. So I assume that really she couldn't speak on her own behalf about where she came from. So Elisabeth had actually slipped in a secret note into Kirsten's pocket that informed the doctors that she had given Kirsten cough medicine and aspirin. The note said, quote, "Please, please help her. Kirsten is really terrified of other people. She's never been to a hospital. Kirsten, please stay strong until we see each other again." The doctors became really suspicious because of the terrible condition that Kirsten was in. Of course, she was, pale, emaciated. Her teeth had never really been cared for. So, there's just a lot going on that they could really tell she hadn't come from a normal situation.
Yeah, she physically is affected at this point.
Yeah.
It's been 19 years minimum. Like, she's 19.
Right. The doctors decided to reach out to the media to attempt to get in contact with Kirsten's mother, Elisabeth, and they said they needed more information to help save Kirsten. So when the media contacted Josef to inquire about Elisabeth's whereabouts, he said, quote, "Just bug her off. Don't pester me. I don't want anything to do with Elisabeth." And then he abruptly hung up.
Which just sounds like a crotchety old man who doesn't want to be bothered by some media. You know, it's probably, again, this is a small town. This is the
equivalent
biggest
of get
story
off
right
my
now.
lawn.
It is so the equivalent of get off my lawn. Don't call me again.
Yep.
Prank caller, hang up.
Yeah. So at first people thought maybe he was just mad that his daughter, you know, had left their granddaughter in that condition. You know, they thought he was upset about that. But Elisabeth saw the doctors on the TV pleading for her to come forward, and she begged Josef to let her talk to the doctors herself and kind of, you know, get this situation calmed down. And miraculously, Josef agreed to let Elisabeth come out of the basement and talk to the doctors.
I just imagine this. Hello.
Right?
Doctors, I believe. These are doctors. I just wanted to clear up anything you had, you know, questions about with this girl. Ask away.
I'm here to set the record straight.
I'm here to clear it up because I am nothing but clear-headed. Like,
as you can see from my general appearance.
And the state of my life.
Right. Yep.
Have you met my father-ish? Freaky Joseph?
My name is Freaky Elisabeth of Freaky Joseph.
Oh my
family.
God, they're related, you guys. We knew it. Where's your grandmother?
Right.
That's what they want to know.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
So Josef took Elisabeth to the hospital, and he told the doctors that she had escaped from the cult and arrived to help give the doctors more information. And again, of course, the doctors observed that she was really polite and nice, and she just looked kind of normal, gray hair, but she had this sort of blank expression like a wax figure. And just like her daughter was kind of, didn't look like she was in good health, a little bit emaciated, you know, they knew something was up right away. So initially she didn't say anything to authorities, and Josef, of course, wouldn't leave her side the entire time. But once the doctors managed to get Josef and Elisabeth separated, they threatened to charge her with child abuse because of the way that, you know, Kirsten was clearly neglected. So Elisabeth was terrified by this, and she told them that it wasn't true, you know, and tried to plead with them that she had taken good care of her daughter. But she also insisted that she couldn't really tell them why Kirsten was in that condition.
This is part of that meeting that
Right.
I want to hear. Like,
Yeah.
well, you see, she only eats about 3 times a week, sometimes once.
Right.
But I can't tell you why.
Yeah.
Like, I fly on the wall.
I know. So authorities just kept pushing, you know, they were really, you know, persistent about it. And eventually she said that she would talk under one condition. She asked that she never have to see her father again.
Granted, said the genie.
Right? Like,
that came out of that lamp. Like,
no problem. We got
okay.
you. Yes.
Tell us what the hell's going on, girl.
So they agreed, of course, and she began to tell them about the basement. And at first they didn't believe her, but the more details she gave, the more convincing it was to the doctors. So Josef, of course, denied all the allegations, but the doctors and police didn't really believe his story. So on April 26th of 2008, police executed a search warrant on the Fritzl home, and they arrested 73-year-old Josef Fritzl. The rest of the family was taken to a psychiatric hospital where Elisabeth, Rosemary, and the 6 children received treatment for their trauma. After weeks in the hospital, Kirsten woke up from her artificially induced coma, and she reunited with her family on June 8th. And doctors said that she would make a full recovery.
Now, Kirsten falls out unconscious in a cellar.
Yes.
Okay?
And then wakes up.
Gets taken out, is never, nothing, induced coma, and then wakes up.
To a completely different world she's never seen before.
Seeing track lighting.
Right.
She's never seen before. Flooring. I mean, hospital. Bedding. Like
another person.
There's one, maybe. Someone over 5'8".
Right.
Crazy things, right?
Unreal.
I can't even imagine. And she's 19, so she's old enough to like realize, oh my God, shit's going on. She's not like 5 years old. Like,
right, where it's like,
world.
yeah, you just kind of absorb
I dreamt that whole thing, right?
Right.
No, she's old enough to know, like, this is a new chapter.
Yeah.
And everything will be different from here on out.
Yes.
That would be kind of cool. But also
so crazy.
Terrifying.
Yes.
But hey, I'm not in a bunker anymore.
Right.
So things have got to be looking up for me.
It's nowhere but up from the bunker.
Nowhere but up, because I'm also now an upstairs child.
Right.
Oh my God, I've been promoted.
Yes. Yeah, it's unreal. Kids. Yeah, so the upstairs children, Lisa, who was 16, Monica, 14, and 12-year-old Alexander, entered counseling for their shock and anger and resentment because they just found out all this news about the second family. And then the captive children, who were Kirsten, 19, 18-year-old Stefan, and 5-year-old Felix, had to undergo special therapies for adjusting to this new outside world that they'd never seen before. So initially, doctors thought that the captive children were relatively healthy, but just kind of disoriented by the outside world. But pretty soon after, they began psychiatric and medical care, and it was discovered that they were in much worse shape and far more traumatized than the doctors initially thought. So while in captivity, 19-year-old Kirsten had tore out her hair in huge clumps, and it was reported that she had shredded her dresses before stuffing them in the toilet.
I kept reading that, okay, about she would shred her dresses and stuff them in the toilet, and yeah. I gotta be honest, all I could think was, that doesn't seem like the biggest problem we're gonna have.
Right.
Okay, like,
let her do what
crazy,
she wants.
But I'm like, that's probably, she's acting out.
Yes. There's
she's
something
all
to
these
process
things,
there.
right? But realistically, shred, baby, shred.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to watch your mother being raped. Like, all these crazy things that you're trying to deal with.
Yeah.
This can be a
the
coping mechanism that I'm okay with. You know, like, it just didn't seem that crazy to me.
Yes.
In the scheme of things.
Absolutely.
I don't know. But tearing your hair out seems worse.
Yeah.
I don't know.
18-year-old Stefan could not walk properly because he was 5'8", which, of course, like we discussed earlier, the cellar was only 5'6" at the highest points. So he'd been forced to remain hunched over constantly for his entire life. And he was, definitely had a lot of physical problems from hunching over.
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. Kirsten and Stefan also got severe anxiety and panic attacks. So when lights would dim or doors would close, anything sudden, they would kind of be sent into these panic and attacks. Bet. Yeah. So after the initial happiness of seeing the sun for the first time and riding in cars and other new experience wore off, they were really crippled with terror. So it was kind of so shocking at first that they seemed somewhat normal. And then when it set in that their world had entirely changed, that's when a lot of these symptoms started to develop. So the doctors set up special containers that were dark and confined so the kids could actually crawl in them when they felt overwhelmed and they needed to get more comfortable. So this allowed them to get back to kind of what they were used to.
And again, these kids are 19, 18, and then 5.
Yes.
And Alexander, no, he was upstairs.
Felix
and
was
a
5.
5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's awful, but it sounds very similar to crate training.
Yeah, I didn't think about
which
that.
is like all about, making them have their own space and feeling safe and, in their little area. And it seems really horrible to give them this little box, but they feel better in the box than in a giant pen.
Right.
And I mean, as I listen to it, it's like, oh my gosh, that's what you do to crate train a dog.
Well,
or really any dog you get from like a shelter.
Right.
That's come from something, questionable background. That's like 101. Little tiny crate. Small area for them.
That makes so much sense. And Joseph had completely treated them, the downstairs kids, like animals.
They were definitely
so
animals.
Of course they would adapt to that kind of, animalistic behavior.
It's crazy.
Wow. So the youngest, 5-year-old Felix, often crawls into his container and hums the same song to himself. And police believe that his mother used to use this song to kind of soothe him to sleep. And that's what he would use to self-soothe. The other 3 children of Elisabeth who were raised upstairs were also being treated for their anger and confusion and the bitterness they had towards their family that, they had been tricked into believing was their real family. On April 29th of 2008, it was announced that DNA evidence confirmed that Joseph was the biological father of Elisabeth's children.
Terrible. Just terrible.
Joseph's defense lawyer, Rudolf Meyer, said that although the DNA test proved incest, evidence was still needed for the allegations of rape and enslavement.
Because she could have consented to having sex with her father and then carrying his children multiple times. I know.
This is why people hate lawyers. This is why.
There's no other way to go.
That's disgusting to try and defend that.
It's all semantics. I
mean, we don't know.
The children,
we can't assume that he raped her.
The children are the proof of incest, but not rape because she could have been into it.
God,
and maybe she was wearing a short skirt that he picked out for her that night.
It's fucking unreal. So in May 2008, a handmade poster created by Elisabeth, her children, and her mother at the therapy facility was displayed in the Amstetten town center. The poster thanked the community for their support and said, quote, "We, the whole family, would like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for sympathy at our fate. Your compassion is helping us greatly to overcome these difficult times. And it shows us there also are good and honest people here who really care for us. We hope that soon there will be a time where we can find our way back into a normal life."
And this again shows how small of a town this is.
Yeah.
And how it really is about relying on your community.
Yep.
And these are people that Rosemary probably grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
Probably grandparents lived in that town. And their name, the Fritzl name, has been tainted.
Yeah.
And it goes back far and deep.
Yep. Before the trial, Joseph saw a psychiatrist to determine if he was competent to stand trial. And the doctor's reports were actually leaked to the press. The forensic psychiatrist diagnosed Fritzl as having, quote, "severe combined personality disorders," which included borderline, schizotypal, and schizoid personalities with a sexual disorder.
Check.
Check. So the doctor recommended that Fritzl receive psychiatric care for the rest of his life, but said that he was actually fit to stand trial. So legally, he was competent.
Yeah.
The published report said, quote, "He has done a malicious vein and almost unstoppable flood of destructive lava. For someone who was born to rape, he held out for a relatively long time."
Gross.
The doctor added that Joseph was hopeful that he could get a short sentence and rejoin his family in his old age.
Because he'd always gotten away with everything.
Right.
So
why
nothing
wouldn't
tells
he believe
him that he's going to get in trouble for this. There's no punishment because it's his own daughter, right? It's his family. It's not your business. Stay out of it.
Mm-hmm.
We handle ourselves or, some bullshit.
Yes. He's still so stuck in that.
Yeah.
And
Good old, not even like good old boy mentality. It's like we take care of each other.
Yes.
family, like stay out of it, this and that.
Yeah.
But he's just such an asshole and gruff.
Mm-hmm.
That probably took care of a lot of it.
Right. Yeah. So Elisabeth agreed to testify at the trial only under the condition that she wouldn't have to face her father in person in court. So the court, of course, accommodated her request and agreed to a series of pre-recorded interviews with both sides, the prosecution and the defense lawyers. Reporters and the public were banned from the court while Elisabeth's evidence was played. And this was because, they thought the public shouldn't be subjected to all these horrific details of what she went through. Elisabeth gave a total of 11 hours of testimony, which were played to 8 jurors in small segments. And this was because the information was so disturbing that they were given a lot of breaks to minimize the risk of the jury becoming traumatized by the information in the testimony. Josef was asked to give his response to Elisabeth's testimony at the end of each section. Josef denied that he had enslaved his daughter. Josef denied that he had actually enslaved his daughter, and his lawyers argued that keeping her captive was actually the act of a loving father to basically save her from drugs and alcohol and kind of the bad characters that she was, quote, getting mixed up with. And the lawyer tried to paint him as a really caring man who spent, a lot of time and money maintaining these 2 families. He argued that this was basically evidence that, the books and toys and gifts he had brought, like the fact that he got a Christmas tree for the dungeon, this was all supposed to be evidence that he was a loving, caring father. He also says that this was evident when he brought them pets, like a fish aquarium and a canary.
Love the canary, by the way.
Right? The lawyer even said that the canary's ability to survive in the basement was proof that the air quality couldn't have been that bad.
What a fucking lawyer. Right?
Again, this kind of shit is why people hate lawyers.
He could have
because you're defending these completely indefendable acts.
Could have said budgie.
But it had to be a canary.
Implies healthy airspace.
Right.
When all they could talk about was the disgusting smell in that cellar.
Yep. Josef actually did admit that he had burned the body of the deceased twin, Michael, in the incinerator. But he really denied that he was responsible for murder through negligence.
Well, no, because it was her fault. She did it during childbirth, I'm sure.
Right. Just trying to pawn it off.
Must have been something wrong with them. He was 66 hours old, right?
Right.
It must have been something she did. After all, he wasn't paying attention, right?
Right, exactly.
She was so good at it.
Right. She had so much practice.
So much.
So again, like I said earlier, Josef said, "I don't know why I didn't help. I just overlooked it. I thought the little guy would survive." So in March 2009, Josef Fritzl was found guilty of enslavement, incest, rape, coercion, false imprisonment, and murder by negligence.
This will not be expunged in 15 years, correct?
No.
Okay, good. Just checking.
Because
when he's trying to adopt kids,
right, in
when
10 years
paroled
from now,
or something nuts.
I know.
Shit.
So he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years, which is really just what the fuck, Austria.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't, this is 15 years of prison, and he kept her enslaved for 24 years.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting equation.
Yes. The math on there just doesn't fucking add up.
I wonder if that lawyer had anything to do with this.
Right?
Maybe
I
a
smell
little.
the lawyer all over
I
this.
think this has his hands all over it.
So Josef never admitted any guilt or remorse for what he had done. He really believed that justice had failed him and he was basically wrongly convicted. He kept saying, quote, "Just look into the cellars of other people. You might find other families and other girls down there."
And that is the only real contribution Josef Fritzl gives us, which is, again, check your neighborhoods.
Yes.
You better keep your side of the street clean.
Keep your eyes
because there is some
peeled.
psycho in a basement on that side. You got to.
When you see red flags, say something.
He's not the only one out there.
Yes.
He knows he's not the only one out there.
Yes.
Because if he's thinking it, someone else is.
Yep, absolutely. So in prison, 83-year-old Josef Fritzl has changed his name to Josef Meyerhoff and is thought to have dementia now.
Great excuse.
Right. Elisabeth was said to be estranged from her mother, Rosemary, because she's upset that her mother accepted Joseph's story about the whole cult thing and didn't really keep asking any questions or fighting to get her daughter back.
Saw this coming.
Yeah. But Elisabeth allows her 3 children, who were actually raised upstairs by Rosemary and Joseph, to visit their grandmother regularly. She doesn't want to make her children cut off contact.
I get that.
Yeah, I get it. Totally.
It makes sense. It's understandable.
The kids have already been through enough. I'm sure she's just like, well,
and then to find out like everything, just all of it. Their mom's been alive the whole time. This is my grandma, but this was my mom, but like this was my grandma.
That's enough of a shock.
It's a rough one.
Yeah. So Rosemary lives alone in a small apartment. And as of an article from about April 2018, 52-year-old Elisabeth lives in a small village only an hour outside of Amstetten with her children, who are now between the ages of 15 and 29 years old. The neighbor says everybody in the village knows them. Given what they have been through, they are very polite, happy, and they smile a lot. Since regaining her freedom, 52-year-old Elisabeth has been given a new identity, which is strictly protected under Austrian law. Elisabeth also got married, and one of her children actually works in local government.
I bet he works at the DMV. He's got a lot of patience.
Oh, no.
He's got time to spare. He's used to just like,
I've got
next
forever.
issue I'll think about for a year.
Yes.
Before I do anything about this. Yeah, sounds good to me.
So that's the story.
They're happy and they smile
the
a lot.
Fritzls.
They can do this, so can we.
Right?
Like,
This makes me feel like
damn it.
Such a punk. Just like, why can't I get through life? The tiniest things get me grumpy.
Another example of why, like, everyone else can make it, right? Come out of a bunker and get a job in the government. I mean, you know how hard it is to get a government job?
I turn into a complete bitch when I need a snack. Like
that's like one of those
makes
things,
me feel so shitty.
Yeah, it's like working for the railroad. Like you get that job through a family member and you hold on to it.
Right.
You got benefits. Usually it's union. So I got to say, for everything that we've heard, sounds to me, I mean, she's married.
Right. That was one of the things that
how do you trust a man to touch you?
Exactly. I don't know how you really recover from that. And I want to believe that, that you can work through it and whatnot, but I don't know if I'm strong enough. I try and put myself in that position, and I don't know if I could get through it and ever be with someone,
I know exactly what you do. You live alone and you date a contractor who does all the construction you could ever need. Because you're not doing that work ever again.
Building huge houses.
She's got experience now.
You never have to use your hands.
She's got experience in excavating.
Oh, no.
That could go on a resume. Man.
So that's Josef Fritzl.
Freaky Joseph.
Freaky Joseph
From
and
start
the Fritzl
to
family.
The end. Just
nonstop freakiness.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of, everybody has a chance. Even if your mom is like really a harsh, stern Austrian woman who beats you and all this, you don't have to imprison her later.
Right.
You don't have to
you
do
could
this
always
to your kids.
Get some mental health help.
Break the cycle.
And break the cycle.
It is the 50s.
Which is way harder, but nowadays the lesson is you can always overcome your circumstances.
We've learned our lesson from Josef Fritzl. If anyone out there is thinking about this, maybe don't.
Just maybe. Maybe don't.
Well, he probably thought about raping too much. So maybe.
Probably.
That was the best when I read this. And, I fantasized about my mom.
You know, probably.
Like, well, one time's too many. Thinking about the fantasy we've gone too far.
I can conclusively say that definitely one time is too much.
And what the fuck, man? That town, like...
I know.
What the hell's going on in there? That's a tiny little town. I don't think it's that big of a town, especially that they're posting art in the community center after the fact, thanking the neighborhood.
Yep.
They probably have a lot of guilt.
I know.
As neighbors and just people around town. You see the same people at the newsstand.
All these red flags and didn't say anything.
See something, say something.
Yes. That's the lesson.
This is so fun. I've had a wonderful time.
Me too. Thank you for coming on and talking about Josef Fritzl and
this
his
is all
freakiness.
I want to do. This is it. Just download psychopaths. It's just unreal. But that documentary is called Monster. It's called like the story of Josef Fritzl, the word monster, and it's kind of hard to find. It's on YouTube though.
Oh, okay.
It's on YouTube.
Because I was looking at on like link. Terrarium and shit like that.
We'll put it in the notes.
Yes.
I didn't find a link on Terrarium TV.
Yeah. I was looking and I didn't find it. So.
I did that. But YouTube has it. And there's a couple episodes of like BBC shows that have some good stuff. Yeah. It's a very interesting story.
This is just, like I said before, another one that I really wanted to cover because it's just so heavy. There's so much going on and it's so relentlessly tragic.
Another interesting thing about this story is you take it and you think about it like he was not planning. He was never going to let her go.
Never.
He wasn't going to let her go until he died and she died there too. And they just never found it until they tore the house down.
Right.
But yeah, same thing. It's always like if the kids are sick, something becomes human.
Yep.
Or it's like, I got a hysterical woman here and I got to shut her up.
Maybe that's it. Just like, I'm not really human, but I can't really hear much more of this.
Right? Like, oh God, again.
It's probably that because these type of men that commit these crimes are, you know, such woman haters.
They just can't be bothered.
That, they just want to end the situation, end the complaining.
It's very timely too with all these people, like the family in Paris with the 14 kids, the people out in Palmdale, and then there was another one they just found in the desert with plywood boxes, and they still haven't found the little boy that they went looking for, but they found remains of someone else.
It's just
There's
so
a lot.
crazy how often people
a lot of slavery shit
keep
going on.
someone in captivity.
I don't get it.
Well, I think that's pretty much it because we're running pretty long this time, so thank you for listening. And if you want to check out our social media, all those links are in the show notes. If you want any large merch items, t-shirts, phone cases, stuff like that, we've got Threadless, and Patreon has bonus episodes, smaller merch items like stickers and magnets and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of pretty much it for us this week. So thank you for listening, and thank you to Courtney for coming on.
Thank you for allowing me to come on and visit.
Talk about creepy creepers.
Oh, it's my favorite topic ever. It's all I do. What do you like? Murder? Death? Sign me up.
Yep, I'm in. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, wah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, savings coming at ya, savings coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to take a spirit animal quiz online.
Please be the cheetah. Please be the cheetah.
And learn your animal isn't the cheetah, but the far less appealing blobfish.
Oh, come on.
To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 blobfish minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.